Thanks for having me speak. I'm very excited to do so because I really had a great time doing the Paths to Positivity this year. It's my first time running it, so I'm the HR wellness specialist at the city, and um, I have participated in this previously, but this was my first time running it, so very excited to tell you what I did. So I'm telling you when to go to the next slide, right? Thank you. So we have had the Paths to Positivity run at the City of Minneapolis since 2018, and my boss, Amy Friedman, did it previously before myself. We had it in 2018, 2019, and I will say 2018 is when I started with the city, and I participated in it as a participant. So it was in person. It was right up my alley. I was very interested in it. They ran it every fall. I went with coworkers, which made it really nice each week to go and participate, which then, as we all know, changed as things changed in our world. So we had it 2018 and 19 in full person, 2021. We didn't run it because we did a full year It's Okay to Not Be Okay mental health campaign. So that kind of took the place of Paths to Positivity that year. In 2020, it was virtual. I will say I did participate as a participant, but I fell off. The virtual was a little harder to connect. In last year in 2022, we were going to do it in the fall, but we were lucky enough in the city. We got a brand new public service building where a lot of our departments were put into one building, and we got a fitness center for our employees, which is fabulous. And it's run by, we contract with Health Source Solutions to have a fitness specialist run it. And they had a program in September that was about fitness, and we did not want Paths to Positivity to compete with it. So it got bumped to right now, 2023. So we did a hybrid version. It kicked off in It took place over the whole month of March. So if you want to jump to the next slide. Previously, the format that we used for all the years until this one um, was the participation manual. It was 5 weeks. What I thought was brilliant, Amy Friedman let me know that she had incorporated part of our free classes that we get through Optum with our health plan. Those are built into our medical plan. And so she was using those each week, taking classes tailored to one of the paths. And then I had no idea, but I thought, oh my gosh, that's so great. That's totally what I'm doing this year. It kind of makes it even more turnkey than Hennepin County giving us the information. Take the Paths to Positivity info, plug in my classes from Optum. No one will know the difference, and it'll be easy for me to provide all the wonderful stuff for employees. So that's what we have done in the past, and that's what I totally intended to do this year. Next slide. So this was our kickoff. I will tell you a funny little story. I had come to a Health at Work meeting, saw speaker Molly Raymond present, and I became a groupie. I hate to admit it. They shared the link for her LinkedIn, and after she spoke, I was so moved that I thought, oh my God, I'm going to contact her. So I did, connected with her on LinkedIn, asked her if she'd be willing to go to coffee, and she did. And my plan was to have her be the kickoff speaker for Paths to Positivity. So we agreed on that, and I was super excited. So now my plan is keynote speaker Molly Raymond, gonna do all my Paths to Positivity base camp stuff, and then throw in my Optum classes. It'll run itself. Well, I bumped into Molly a couple of times in the year at some conferences, and fast forward, we had a job opening here at the city. Molly applied for it and ended up becoming an employee. Now, positive for me because I got to save money. I didn't have to pay to have her be the keynote speaker, which was great for me. She became a part of our learning and development team, which then was a second positive because we kind of tried to integrate some of our programming, which we hadn't done before. The wellness kind of stood alone. and learning and development did their own standalone. So now we were starting to integrate, which I try to do with a lot of my wellness programming, is integrate things that we have going on in the city together. Various staff or employees just try to merge it together, and as well as our fitness center staff try to merge that into my wellness. So this was what we kicked it off with. Next slide, please. So what I ended up doing was not what I had intended. In January, I ran a mindfulness session with Meg Burtis, an acquaintance of mine who I had learned had done a 2-year certification through Berkeley on insight mindfulness, and she ran an 8-week program here at the city. It was 30 minutes for 8 weeks on mindfulness, and it wasn't just 30 minutes of meditation. It was really digging into mindfulness and how you can incorporate it into your life, kind of practice it at any moment. One great idea she gave was when you're getting to the grocery store and you're going to go in, just before you get out of the car, take 2 minutes in the car before you go in and just breathe. Connect with your breath, um, connect with your body. It's very simple. But anyway, all of a sudden I thought, wow, she was so great. So many employees loved her. I had about 50 participants every week for 8 weeks. If you can imagine, I could carry that forward. So then I plugged her into the mindfulness week. And so she came and did a session on mindfulness. Then I have Deborah Grayson, who happens to be our on-site consultant here at the city through Optum, which is also a fabulous benefit for our employees. She provides 10 hours a week. She's here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and she's unlimited for employees if they have issues at work or at home, free therapy, free support, just kind of like an employee assistance program, but she's on site. And so then I thought, connection. She loves connecting people. I think I'll plug her in. So now she's taken the slot of another Optum class, but she came, she talked about making connections. She talked about how important it is to connect with others. And that really resonates with me also because for me, it's relationships that matter so much. I feel repetitive when I say relationships, 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 but it's even events like this where you can connect with other people, get ideas. May Brooks doesn't know it, but I'm probably going to stalk her for a blind date for lunch also after she did her presentation here. I was so inspired. And then for our last session, we did on purpose. I talked with Molly Raymond again, and then Vince Therian, who's part of our learning and development, and they had talked about doing purpose boards. So we did this hybrid. All of our sessions were on Teams virtually, but we had one in-person session, which was the purpose. And folks came and did purpose boards. So where they um, got together, talked about values, talked about feelings. We had magazines all over the table. All of the supplies were provided, and people sat and glued and pasted and tactilely had opportunities to create purpose boards that they could take home with them, which was really great. Next slide, please. Trying to stay on track so I don't run over. Here are the pictures of some of the purpose boards that people came and did. And in the feedback, people thought it was so fun and really enjoyed getting together and making those. So that was really fantastic. Next slide. This was just an example of one of the emails I sent out. I sent them out weekly, did them on Mondays, and we had done that previously in the years. Every Monday would be that weekly email that would say what's coming up. And I tailored mine just a little differently. Number one, that star, I used pieces from the base camp, Paths to Positivity information, because there were so many good things with a lot of links and articles. So I took some of that, but then I also would have at number two, a summary of what had happened in the session before. So when Meg did mindfulness, if you weren't there, then you got to know what she did. And if you were there, it was just kind of a summary to help you remember the things that she had talked about. And then each person gave me ideas for books. So Meg gave me ideas on mindfulness. Molly gave me ideas for purpose. Deborah Grayson gave me ideas for books on making connection. So I thought that was another good way to give people tools to do things afterwards. Also, what really resonated with me before I started the program is I had an employee who had done Paths to Positivity in the past, and she said she really liked that it was something that employees could do at their own pace. And so I really publicized each week in my emails. I really highlighted do what you can do. Come to all of the sessions, come to one. Um, Read the stuff later, whatever works for you. I didn't want people to feel like, I also didn't want people to feel like wouldn't sign up if they didn't think they could complete 5 weeks. So I really tried to communicate this is a go at your own pace program and do what works for you. Next slide, please. So what's next was kind of our last week when I met with Molly in the beginning and talked about what we were going to do. I really had a plan for 4 weeks, a kickoff, and then 3 weeks for each path, and then kind of done with a close-up email. But when I talked to Molly, she was like, let's have a 5th week and we'll kind of talk about what's next. So if you go to the next slide. So our final session, Molly kind of led it, and she did some immunity mapping about why it's so hard to change and why people sometimes have an immunity to change, and kind of went into, digging a little deeper and how do we make change and why is it so difficult sometimes. But also in the past, some of our employees, a couple of years ago talked about what are things that help them alleviate stress or burnout. And some of the things that we got in suggestions were book clubs. And so I loved that idea and thought about incorporating it into Paths to Positivity. So that was part of our what's next. We picked books for each of the paths like we had sent out in the email. So I had a list. And so then I gave those to employees at the end in the email of what's next. Here are multiple books aligned with each of the paths. Pick some that resonate with you. I tried to be varied in having some that were diverse so that they could maybe hit everyone. And then I picked one book from every path to highlight as a book club book. And then Molly, which I loved the idea, said, what do you think about this, Melody? What if I do a journal club where I connect with people once a month for 3 months? And I was like, fabulous. So I feel like it's really well-rounded. So I'm leading the 3 books that are on mindfulness, connection, and purpose, The True Refuge, Speak and Never Eat Alone. Deborah Grayson, our on-site consultant, is actually going to come to the book club for Never Eat Alone because that was her suggestion. So I made it on a day when she happens to be on site. And then Molly is going to do the Journal of Radical Permission, a journal club. So if that was something somebody wanted to do, wanted to dig a little deeper, she'll do that monthly. But the other one is your standard book club format where they have the whole month of April to read a book. And then I have picked book club dates in the beginning of May that we would come together and meet and just talk about it. And I'm also keeping that pretty loose, that kind of like when you've ever been in a book club and you never got to read it, and then you feel like you don't want to go, but you want to tell people, come anyway, you could just eat and talk. So I've kind of told people that they can do that too. Even if you've read a fourth of the book, come to the book club. Maybe talking to people about what they learned or what they read would inspire you to read the rest. So I'm super excited about it. We had about 70 people sign up for Paths to Positivity in general. I've got 25 people signed up for the book clubs. I also bought 10 of each of the books to kind of raffle them off to employees. I've also highlighted that they could go to Libby at the Hennepin County Library and get them that way. They can go on to Audible, listen to them while they walk, or listen to them on their commute to work. Next slide, please. And then I sent a survey out also in the last one, and the survey feedback was really great. And it made me feel like, I had made some people easier to add a little bit of positivity, even if it's that they came to one session. And a couple of people emailed me afterwards also saying, I had good intentions. I meant to do it, but I didn't get a chance to. But thank you for your really informative emails. I plan to go back and look at them later. So what are some things I would do differently? Um, I had kind of forgotten that Amy had sent Mindful Minute invitations. We have a weekly Mindful Minute here at the city every single Wednesday at 9 a.m. for 9. That's why I was a little bit late. I've got a really great following of people that come every week, and it's just 10 minutes just to do some mindfulness and start your day out right. So I would send that next time or incorporate that in. I'd also try to do some accountability groups because that hybrid piece is really tricky. So maybe even something virtual to keep us on track. I also would want to over communicate about the in-person session because when you do some virtually, we really thought it would be too hard to offer those virtually, the purpose boards to do at home. People enjoyed it. They loved it. They want us to do more. And so we hope to do a couple of those sessions separately. But some people thought that that was an online option. So there was a little confusion that day. Um, and I guess that's it. You could jump to my last slide for questions if anybody has any now, or you can always feel free to email me. If anybody wants to meet me for coffee, I'm open for that too.
Thank you, Melody.